Hey everyone, I'm here to show you one technique for painting 3D printed objects. So what I've got here is a little 3D printed moon shape with some words indented into it. And I've taped off half of it so that I can show you what it looks like before and after when I'm done. I'm going to do some other experiments with it, and so I needed to tape off half of it just so that you'd be able to see the original. What I've done is I've already sanded it with about 300 grit sandpaper, 320 or whatever is cheap at the store, and sanded it down just a little bit. I didn't want to remove all the texture because some of that's the moon shape. And then what I'm going to do next is prime it with some some filler primer, high build formula. This is just, got this at Home Depot, nothing particularly fancy about it, but it's a good brand. I've been shaking it up for the last couple of minutes. I'm going to shake it up some more, and then I'm going to do one light coat on this, and then we'll come back and probably do a second coat. But let's see how this goes. So here's after one coat. I'm going to let this kind of set and dry for a few minutes, then maybe another quick second light coat. So here it's been 10 minutes, and we've got one good coat on there. You can see, maybe hard to see that there's, you can still see some of the little different layers, and so I'm going to do a second coat and try to knock those out. So it's been another 20 minutes, and I'm just going to do one more light pass to make sure I've got plenty of primer. So it's been 2 full days since I painted this with the 3 coats of paint. So it's had plenty of time to dry completely. Now it's a little different than a lot of pieces in that I actually want to keep a lot of this texture that's on there. So I don't want to sand it down completely smooth, but I want to see if I can sand out a few of these little ridges that I see. And this section over here is pretty smooth, so if I can get rid of some of those ridges, I'm not sure how well they're going to pick up on there. What I've got here is some 800 grit sandpaper, very, very fine. And so I'm going to try to just sand this down really lightly just to try to smooth it out. I can see I'm just barely taking any of this off. It's really just taking off some of the high spots. So I may want to do this, or you may want to try with like a little bit stiffer of a sandpaper, a little bit coarser sandpaper. But I'm trying to just get out a little bit of these lines. I really don't want to get rid of the texture. Just want to get rid of the texture where is those lines. And it's actually really pretty minor. And you can see a lot of the primer coming off there. Okay, so here I've sanded it just a little bit, but enough to smooth it out. So there are these ridges along here. You might be able to see them, but if I look at it in the light, they look really, really smooth now, and you can kind of see them. But I don't think you'll be able to see them after you paint over them. To get all the dust off, I'm just going to use a kind of a moist paper towel and go over the whole thing once with that. Makes it nice and glossy and shiny and stuff, and then use the other side of the paper towel, which is still dry, and kind of try to get all the little dust off. So you can see that looks pretty good. And yeah, I can see now in the reflection real smooth. I could sand it some more if I want to, but I think I'm going to leave just a little bit of this texture. If you were trying to get something really smooth and you weren't worried about keeping texture in it like this, you could just keep sanding it down. Since I want to keep some of that texture, I'm just going to have to live with a few ridges down in the little divots that are there, because they're there. So that definitely gives you an idea of what parts you'd be able to smooth, and gives you an idea of, if you 3D print a piece, what areas you might be able to smooth or not be able to smooth. If I got maybe a Dremel or something and could just, barely touch it in there, I might be able to smooth those out. Or if I could get a very, tiny piece of sandpaper and kind of get in there and smooth it out. You can almost smooth it out with your fingernail if you want to. But overall, I'd say that looks pretty good, pretty smooth. There's a few little places here where the primer's kind of cracked, but I think that'll get covered up with the paint. Down in the grooves of these letters, I don't know if you can see that way down inside. I can still see those pretty well, just because it's hard to get the primer down in there, and it's almost impossible to sand down in there. So we'll see how that goes.